When we talk about small electric cars with decent range, with decent practicality, most people think of the Renault 5. That's the car that everybody is gunning for at the moment. And one of the hardest things that manufacturers do is to try and produce a small car that feels special, that does all of the things that you want it to in the real world. Well, Kia's answer to that is this, their smallest electric car yet. This is the EV2, a car that says it can do 275 miles on a charge, but it also has the practicality of big boot space and also adjustability in the back seats, as well as all the other amazing Kia things that they offer, like a 7-year warranty. And in this video, I'm going to do a quick walk round and tell you as much as I can all about the EV2. I'm Jonny Smith. This is The Late Break Show. So first thing I'll tell you is that there's two battery choices for the EV2, the biggest one being 61 kilowatt hours, the smaller one being 42.2. So in the same way that Renault's offering two different batteries and various other manufacturers, it's a good idea. The other thing to mention is this car looks much bigger than it actually is. This is a 4-meter long car, or to be precise, it's 4,060 millimeters, okay? So it's styled to look like a powerful, stocky SUV. Of course it's not really an SUV, but it has got very almost K-car kind of flat front, or like the EV9, if you've seen the EV9, which is Kia's biggest electric car, biggest car that they sell in the UK, and I've done a review on that a while ago. Very similar in styling to that. Flat roof, we'll come on to that bit in a minute, but this is based on the EGMP, the EGMP specific EV platform. So flat floor car, front wheel drive. It does have a little boot, Frunk, Froot there, but most of the storage is in the back. Competitors, we have to talk about the competitors. The Hyundai has the Insta. The Insta has been a runaway success, and it's even smaller than this car, and it's 4-seat. This is available as a 4 or a 5-seater. We'll come on to that in a minute. This is going to be a really competitive Class B segment because you've got Volkswagen bringing out the ID Polo, which is probably the most interesting ID car and the most useful ID car yet. And then you've got obviously Hyundai, their cousins, with the Insta that's already out. You've got Renault. This sits between the Renault 5 and the 4, really, in terms of both size and volume. And then you've got many other manufacturers, which I'll put above my head. There's quite a few cars that are vying for this, including Stellantis is offering like Citroën EC3 and the Fiat Panda electric, a car which I still haven't driven yet, and I really want to drive both of those. So front end, these almost vertical kind of column lights. This bit here is like a chrome effect. This is the base model. I just want to point this out. This car that you're looking at is the base model, and the base model has chrome effect. Apparently the GT line and GT line S, the higher ranking cars, this is body coloured. I actually think this looks better. And I've said this before, like I did in my EV4 review. I think base model cars look better at the moment. They just do. This is on optional 18-inch wheels. It comes as standard on 16s. Which is hilariously small, but probably better for ride quality and often cheaper for buying actual tyres. You can option it with 19s with the higher ranking cars, but these are the 18s. Something I should have probably pointed out right at the top of this video is that despite being a Korean car, this is actually made in Slovakia. So this is made in the factory in Slovakia, which used to make the Kia Ceed. Kia Ceed has been discontinued and they're making this. So when you're talking about like cars that have travelled a shorter distance, a more local car as it were, this EV is made in Europe and it's specifically made for the European market. You cannot buy the EV2 outside of Europe according to Kia. So they won't be selling it in Asia, they won't be selling it in the States. So it's very much centred around European towns, cities and roads. And I like that about it because of these dimensions. It makes a lot of sense. Let's come round to the side, the profile. So just over 4 meters long, it's 2,565mm wheelbase, so a good size wheelbase, 1575 millimeters high, so it's not too high, and 1800 wide. These handles are, on this particular car, these are out all the time and they're electrically operated, but the base model you'll just be able to push with your finger and they come out. So all of them have got flush door handles for extra aerodynamic efficiency. They're also, this car is all 5-door, and what I've noticed about it is that when you open the back door, we'll go inside in a minute, the glass goes all the way to the edge. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? That's plastic there, and that's not a handle, obviously handle's here. But it's just weird the fact that the end of the door is also glass in this particular place. This one's got murdered out glass, but they've all got this kind of plastic cladding, which is so common in crossovers now to try and make them look more butch and to hide the proportions. And again, this kind of smoked chrome because this is the base model. They haven't revealed prices yet. I'm filming this some 48 hours before the Brussels Motor Show, and we are in Belgium. But this car, in order to compete with Renault and all the others, this has got to be for sale for in the early to mid 20s. But remember also, if you're looking to buy an EV right now in the UK, there's a government grant, and the government grant has been reintroduced. It was there for a few years, but it's coming back. I think it's £3,750. Yes, it is. I remember my notes. So you've got roof bars up the top here, quite a flat roof, and I think they're really maximising the internal space, just like they mentioned with the Hyundai Insta. But in the way that the Hyundai Insta is a physically smaller car, and it's also a little bit more cutesy, this has definitely gone for a more brick-like kind of granite, strong look. And I think the reason for that is because so many people discount small cars because they think the insides are going to be small and therefore a bit pokey, so they just don't even look at them. And we've got into this weird buying habit, especially if you're a family person, of needing to buy a physically bigger car because you think it's going to be bigger, and that's not always the case. So I would always recommend people actually try a car and look round it before you buy, because this sort of size car is really the ideal size for British roads. I love it at the back here. It's very, very vertical in the boot department, a little bit of a roof spoiler coming down here. But these light clusters, they go all the way around here and they actually protrude from the bodywork. And this bit here is sort of part of the light cluster. It's kind of smoked out. Can you see that? And also the main part of the bumpers is just rough plastic, which I think is good because those are the bits that get injured normally on these sorts of cars. I've got no problem with that at all. The boot is class leading. And that's saying something when it's competing with the Renault 5. I've been driving a Renault 5 for all of 2025 pretty much. So I've got a lot of seat time in a Renault 5, and the boot space is big. It's capacious. The 5 doesn't have a false floor like this. This one here has a false floor down there, which you can take this out, which I probably would. This just makes it a flat entry point. But in terms of like, you want numbers. Let's talk numbers. Right, so the Renault 5 is a 326 litre boot, right? And the Insta's a 280 litre boot. I'll put these on screen. And the Panda's got a 361 litre boot. And the Renault 4 is a bigger boot. This has up to 403 litres. And it depends on what you do with the rear seats. Because this car is either a 4-seater or a 5-seater, as I said earlier. And if it's a 4-seater, much like the Insta, which is only available as a 4-seater, you can move the seats forwards and backwards. But entry level, like this, is a 5-seat fixed with a 60-40 split. Yeah, this has got a solid parcel shelf, but I've noticed on the other car with the 4-seater version, this has a fabric insert, so it allows the seats to move. If I can jump into one of those in the other studio, I will. But in these reviews, these first look reviews, you don't have much time. Towing capacity. Now, most people don't tow with EVs. There's a Tesla Model X comes as standard with a tow hook, and they can tow bigger weights, bigger cars. This can tow up to 750 kilos. You're probably not going to tow much with an EV for the fact that it harms the range and it makes charging harder, but bike rack. Lots of people carry bikes on the tow hook mounted bike racks, I do, and e-bikes are getting heavy. So actually it starts to make sense if you're towing either a small trailer or a bike rack. But I thought I'd mention it because, you know, these are supposed to be consumer videos. So like I said about the 2 battery variants, you can have the entry-level 42 kilowatt hour, which will do 196, nearly 200 miles on a charge. That's not bad for the entry level. and then the bigger battery version doing up to 275 miles, 440 kilometers on a charge. The charging port's on the door, which we've seen here on the wing, and it has a physical little hinged cover for the DC rapid charge, and it will DC rapid charge 10 to 80% in 29-30 minutes. They haven't told us how much it can actually charge, what speed it can charge. They've just said 29 to 30 minutes for 10 to 80%. And by the way, it comes with, as standard, 11 kilowatts of AC chargeability, which basically means that you can speed the charge up with its onboard kit. And you can spec the car to have 22 kilowatts of AC charging as well, which is really useful. Smaller battery car will do 2.5 hours to full, whereas the big battery car will do 3 hours at 22 kilowatts. That's really neat. It'll also have vehicle to load and vehicle to grid, I think, as standard, as well as over-the-air updates. In terms of power, like, several criticisms of the Renault 5 is that, oh, it's not that quick. Of course, you've got to buy the Alpine version if you want it to go quick. This is a similar kind of performance. 9.5 seconds to 62 for the big battery, 8.7 seconds to 62 for the smaller battery. But in the real world, that sort of speed, I think, is just perfectly fine. It's not an absolute powerhouse of torque like Teslas and bigger cars. But I think it's harder to make a smaller EV that does all the things that you want it to do. It's harder to make smaller cars that are special, but I think that's where the industry should be going. There's too many very large battery-powered cars and piston cars which don't really hit the mark in many ways. What I would say about the Kia styling is that the cars all look related. EV3 and EV4 and EV5, EV6, which was the first one, and then the EV9. They all look apart from the 6, they all kind of look related in that way that Audi made the Russian doll look quite formulaic, whereas Kia's brother, cousin, sister, Hyundai, is the opposite. Their cars are all over the place. Insta doesn't look anything like the Ioniq 9, doesn't look anything like the 5, doesn't look anything like the 6. Which one's more interesting to you? I personally prefer the design language of the Hyundai, but I think the Kia is more formulaic. Just out of pure curiosity, I want to see what it's like under the front here. So on this plastic deck, which is a little storage plinth, it's quite token. I mean, yeah, I could fit a pair of shoes in there, or maybe 2 pairs of shoes. But to be honest with you, although it looks useless, we were having this discussion with Andy behind the camera. When you're an EV driver and you put the charging cable in the boot and you've got the boot full, it's like having a puncture. You've got to take everything out to get the wheel out. So having it just in the front is genuinely quite useful. But I still think that so few car manufacturers are capitalising on this extra space. I mean, you've got the 12-volt battery right next to it. It was a reminder that most of the times when EVs break down, it's the lead-acid 12-volt battery that lets you down, and not the big expensive battery. There is a difference. Inside the EV2, there's some quite big news things going on here. For a start, because it's a flat floor bespoke EV platform, the EGMP, that all Kia Hyundai cars use, that means it's good for space. The base model car comes with this really interesting fabric upholstery. It's quite pixelated actually, I think there's a couple of derivatives. And the base model car comes with an upholstered dash, which I think feels more premium because obviously it's covering any horrible itchy plastics. But it's nice and it's reminiscent of the BMW i3, which still to this day feels more futuristic than almost all of these segment cars, I think. And is it time that BMW brought it back? Don't know, maybe it was too early. But in true Kia Hyundai style, physical buttons for all the things that matter. This shallow but wide screen, which I know has an EV route planner built into it, and it has something involving Marvel characters. I think it's like wallpaper that they said in the press junket, which I'll be honest, don't interest me, but they might interest your children. What does interest me is the fact the base model has two-spoke steering wheel, same as the Kia EV4. GT line has a 3-spoke. I prefer the 2-spoke, and with a little rotation device here. But even more importantly than that, it's got this 2-piece kind of door card set up. And the reason for that is so that, if I show you here, see the handles kind of down, handles here or here. There's cutouts for bigger bottles and things. So this is kind of hollowed out, and that's really important. Cars like the Renault 5 don't have any really useful storage in the doors. I like carved out doors. They also make the car feel bigger when you're inside. This has the optional Harman Kardon audio setup, which for a car of this segment, pretty damn cool, I think. In terms of tech, this has got the RSPA, not RSPCA, entry, which is remote start parking assist. That basically means you can pull the car out of a parking space, with the remote. Stuff that was on much more expensive cars years ago. And talking of much more expensive stuff, I don't know if you can see it in this particular studio, but as I open the door, there's a puddle light there. And again, like not that long ago, that was the stuff of 80, 100,000 pound cars. And here we are with it on Kias like that. I think that comes as the option with the ambient lighting pack, which you obviously don't have to own. But what does come as standard is in the door here, it says, "Have a nice day," in the door handle. And on the top, in a little neon here, it says "Hello." It's a bit gimmicky, actually. I mean, it's not as cool as, say, the interior space of the Honda E or the i3, which had like amazing design features, but it's practical and it's roomy, and there's tons of space in this console for storing things, bottles, drinks, wireless charging pad, lots of power output options. Has it got them in the seats like all the other Kias? Yes, it does. In the seats here, that all pleases me immensely. There's a heat pump option, which you must if you live in the UK or countries like Belgium, which is throwing down with snow right now. Heat pump is so important for winter driving an electric car, and as are heated seats. I was looking the other day at the Kia Soul EV, the first generation, and the interior of that was really lounge-like. And I know the interior designer of this car, Boram Chin, he was saying to us they want it to feel relaxing and calm in this way that a lot of Japanese designers try and achieve with K cars, to make it feel like it's not so much a car inside but more of a lounge. I know what they're trying to do with this, but I feel like it's cool, but it's not as cool as the first generation Soul interior. But what's most important is back here. This is the important bit, much like Renault said with the Renault 4 and the Hyundai Insta. The backseat area is the more important bit. So I think there's two different roof options, or three if you include the basic roof. This particular car has got the opening sunroof like this. Opening sunroofs are becoming scarce these days because everyone's obsessed with aircon. So you've got this, but you've also got a pano opening roof option, so all the glass all the way back. So although I'm not really interested in the kind of Marvel Disney wallpaper, what I'm really interested in is the fact that you can get a light version of the infotainment, and it doesn't contain nav. Instead of having nav, it just has a connectivity to Apple CarPlay / Android Auto. Hallelujah. It's just like when VW launched the Up with just a little phone, a built-in phone holder, because it just assumes you're going to use your phone for navigation. And to me, I've said it before, I'll bloody say it again, that's the future. If you want up-to-date navigation and stuff, just use your phone. And if you're a person that walks into a dealer and you don't have a smartphone and you don't know, just get the dealer to buy you a phone and just add it to the price. It's so much easier, and it means it doesn't go out of date when you buy this car in 4 years' time. This doesn't feel antique. It just makes much more sense. Digital Key 2.0, it means that the Kia app that's improved allows you to unlock the car, use the car, and even share the car with friends and family without having the physical key in your hand. Other manufacturers have done it. Kia's now doing it. I think that's a good thing. This is the part of the EV2 which Kia is making a bit of a song and a dance about. It comes as standard as a 5-seat, which is what this is. So a middle seat, fixed, with the 60-40 split. I can't actually sit behind myself, but, and here's the thing, if I can, I'll demonstrate the 4-seater, which is an option. And the Insta, the Hyundai, the car that this is roughly based on, is 4-seater only. But if you option it as the 4-seat, they can move independently of one another, and you can decide, do you want more boot space, or do you want more legroom, or do you want to split the difference depending on who's in the car and what you're carrying. And I really like that. There's stats like 4-seater has up to 958 mil of legroom with a 321 litre boot at that point, or you can have the bigger boot with 813 millimetres of legroom. So what I would say is I've got tons of headroom, and it would feel even more exciting if I had the pano roof option. Obviously it's a flat floor, and down here I've got the 3-pin plug option, which again is just very useful, especially if you've got the vehicle to grid and vehicle to load options and stuff. You can power lots of stuff off that. And when we're filming on location, we often use this sort of feature, and I think it's going to become more and more future-proof as time goes on. If I can demonstrate the 4-seater version and how for me it's probably better for having adults in the back, I will demonstrate it now. Right, 4-seater. And this is the party trick, really. I've set this seat of exactly how I would drive. I'm 6'3". But look at this. That's the genius. It's been done before in other cars, but in this segment it makes it. The fact that you can recline the seat, you can individually split them. So I can sit behind myself with loads more room than the 5-seater, and I think having that option is the clincher for me. I would order this as a 4-seat, which I never thought I'd say, but I'm saying it. You sit quite high in the back here, which I don't mind, because these sort of almost one-piece seats, I've said it before, if you can't see through them, especially kids, you can feel motion sick. But I do love that. I think they've really got the design of the front seats down to a T. I've just noticed there's only one map pocket, and I sound like a very old person calling it a map pocket, because how many people actually carry maps, apart from Harry Metcalf? So what do I think? Well, I think that they've got the range nailed, and we know that Kia's EVs are a solid car. What this car is up against, though, are the Renaults, the charismatic looking Renaults, which have been a runaway success, and its smaller brother, the Insta, combined with all the Stellantis offerings. But I think its biggest rival, probably up and coming, is the Volkswagen ID Polo. Because the thing about the VW ID Polo is it's the first electric Volkswagen, apart from the old e-Golf, which I ran 100 years ago, is that it just looks really classy, and it seems to have a good range, and it seems to have sorted itself out quality-wise. It depends on the price of the EV2, and that hasn't been announced yet. But rest assured, they're going to be aggressive in order to compete with Renault, a car which is also built in Europe, like this one. But I think Kia knows what it's doing. It's showing such confidence, especially inside with all these different interior materials. I just wish it was a little bit more like the Nissan Cube or the original Soul. Those were the cars that I truly loved in terms of aesthetics. I should remind you also that I'm filming this just a day or so before the Belgian Motor Show. There's going to be a standalone video of that, which might already be out, but have a look and subscribe and click the bell icon so that you know when those other videos are coming up. Because remember, the Late Break Show isn't just about barn finds and people's car collections and some idiot here's project ambitions. It's also about new cars and electric cars, and it always has been. Anyway, let me know what you think. Maybe you already drive one of the other Kias and you want something smaller but with a decent range. Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already subscribed or looked at my EV playlist on the Late Break Show, I'd love you to do that. Thanks for watching.